So, one question my husband asked me when we were thinking about moving abroad, because I was pretty depressed and anxious in America, was what if your depression doesn't go away? Like, what if we move abroad and your depression doesn't go away? So, today I'm going to talk about my experience with what changed and what didn't change for me mental health wise in leaving America. As a reminder, I'm Andy. This is One Daring Adventure. One Daring Adventure is about noticing beauty, telling the truth. I'm still using my notes. Telling the truth about what's hard and daring to live anyway, even when conditions aren't ideal. So that's where I want to go with this. The thing about depression and anxiety is they're inside jobs, right? To an extent. Certain external circumstances can certainly make them worse. One of my dear friends who has a bunch of kids who also have high needs says anxiety spreads like fleas. So I do think that living in a home where I experience a lot of secondary trauma from parenting kids with primary trauma, from exposures and life and living in institutions before they lived with us. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that probably rightly so give me anxiety, but also, I leaned toward that. And for me, when my anxiety is unchecked, it can become depression. And that's what had happened in the States. But it certainly wasn't helped by a lot of the circumstances in the States. So, for example, I'm parenting a multiracial group of children. And so I had quite a bit of anxiety about police violence against my children as they grew up to be Black young men. So there's that. Also, the gun violence situation in America is very anxiety inducing. So there are just some situations that were true in America that did cause me a lot of anxiety that are either not really problems in many other countries or are intensely less of an issue, at least for physical violence against Black bodies. So I'm not saying that those things don't exist in other places in the world. They certainly do. But those were two things that were removed from my life when we moved abroad. So that helped a lot. I would say that there are new anxieties that come when you move abroad. Just the fact that you don't understand either the language or culturally, like what's normal, or you just don't even know like systems. So like my anxieties haven't gone away. I'd say they've shifted to a degree. But overall, my anxiety level is way down. My nervous system feels much more regulated as a rule living here where I live in Portugal. We live near the sea. I can walk to the ocean that way or that way because we live on a peninsula. So that's cool. So there's a lot of things that shifted for us where, yes, we experience like new stressors, like, there are stressors of working remotely and working with certain companies and Is it going to be fine if you work remotely? Is it going to be fine if you have a different time zone? So there's plenty of things to still struggle about, and it's like my inner world isn't all peace, right? Namely because I still have 5 children. They still came with me, and they do have quite an array of intense needs. So, all of that said, I would say that no, I haven't been depressed since we left in 2019. I have been overwhelmed. I have been anxious, surely, at different points. But the emotional margin that I have, even just to process the very real struggles of life, I have so much more margin since leaving the States. Part of that is just like we don't keep as busy of a schedule, and that's a personal preference thing. But I think, we do a lot more life at home. We get outdoors quite a bit more than, at least my husband and I. The children are still, they still like computers. They still like gaming. But I would say just overall, especially living here at the beach, but even when we lived in different places before we ended up here, we spent about 3 years hopping around some different places in Europe. We just have a calmer pace of life, and there's more delightful daily things in our lives than there were in the States, like meeting up for coffee with friends, like on the spur of the moment. Like everybody's lives, maybe because our friends are retired. A lot of the friends where we are here in Portugal are retired, but like the schedule isn't so intense here. So like our lives are not super packed, and I'm not always like running. It doesn't feel frenetic anymore. And I think for me and my nervous system, like I need a much slower pace than a lot of people seem to need. And so part of my mental health improving, besides just leaving some of the more like toxic and dangerous and unjust things in America, like part of the thing that really made my nervous system happier is just a slower pace of life, as well as what is the word I'm looking for? Like novelty. For me, like I like new things and new places, and I like nature and beauty. And so I'm surrounded by all of those things. I'm able to see architecture that's different. There's not so many strip malls, like there's hardly any strip malls. Just some of the things that like sort of weighed down my soul as a beauty loving artist person. Those things are not so present here in Portugal. So I've noticed that I feel a lot more peaceful overall. The things that are stressful, they feel high stakes in different ways because it's like, immigration paperwork to keep our residency cards, or dealing with schools where you're not really sure, like, what are the rules and like, how is this supposed to go? And what's going to happen if my kid's absent and I don't declare it in the right way? There's new stressors, and they do feel high stakes, but they don't feel like physically dangerous for me or my children. And so I think that there's a lot to be said for just living in a place that feels really safe. yeah, where I'm not afraid to send my kids out to the store. I'm not afraid to have my kids like walking at night. I'm not afraid to walk at night. Like those, just the lack of constant vigilance that can occur for us here has been a really nice adjustment for my nervous system and for my general pace of life and well-being. So yeah, I'm not going to say that it's going to fix your depression and anxiety, but if you're somebody who tends to be sensory sensitive and really love beauty, if you're an artsy soul or a dreamer like I am, I think that you, as long as you don't expect everything to be perfect and better, like I think that you would probably really enjoy the transition if you're somebody like me and you're thinking about that question of, am I still gonna be depressed? You know, like, because there's sort of the joke, like, well, you go with you wherever you go. And that's really true. And yet some environments are better for you, right? Some environments are you choosing more ease. So that's what I did. I followed my intuition and a long, long time dream that I didn't want to get to the end of my life and regret. And it's paid off. It's paid off for my mental health. And I realized at some point that as a mom to a lot of kids with high needs, I really needed to attend to my own well-being so that I could be present in the way that I wanted to be for them. So anyway, if you are somebody who's exploring leaving, moving abroad from the US, I made a flowchart that sort of gives you a bird's eye view of all the places, not all the places, but I think there's at least 70 countries on there that are sort of different options for different lengths of time. And it sort of gives you an idea of where you could go with your passport, with your US passport. So I hope that it helps. It's in the video description. And I would love to hear if it helps you. I'd love to hear if you're somebody who is considering moving abroad and what your concerns are, what's on your mind for what you're worried about, what you're hopeful for, because there's always both. So very happy that you're here at One Daring Adventure. See you later.